See, I always remember Sir Alex saying to me years ago, I like the way Sean Dyche deals with the media post-match. There's a perfect example of it, Martin, is it not? It absolutely tells it as it is.
Yeah.
We were this, we were that, we were not good enough.
Well, it was difficult to say anything else other than that there, because they were really wretched, I have to say. I was expecting more from Everton. In their opening game against Fulham, they created a number of chances. Calvert-Lewin starts the game, and he's just been afflicted with injury, poor lad. But at the end of it all, they need something. They need a spark from somewhere. I don't know where it's going to come from, but it looks a long, hard season in front of them again.
I mean, we'll talk about Calvert-Lewin in a second. Shea Adams being spoken about. Is he going to be part of the answer?
Well, you need someone in. I'm not saying that Shea Adams is going to score all the goals that will get survival for Everton, because that's probably what we're looking at even at this early stage of the season. But overall, they need something. I
mean, quite simply, Simon, they're well off it. But why are they so far off it?
Because they haven't got good enough players. End of discussion. That's it. Sean couldn't do anything else and say what he said yesterday, because it was anything else would have been ridiculous. He didn't single anybody out, so he hasn't lost anybody in the dressing room by saying it. He put them en masse. But, if they're a mile off from the start, Sean has to look at himself to some extent, because he's got to get them started. And, we don't have the same constraints as he will have. You've got central defenders in there that can't defend. Michael Keane can't defend. And as much as, he may be an honest pro, you've got to call things for what they are. Two of the goals.
That's a bit harsh, Simon, isn't it?
Well, I tell you what, I think it may well be
like
harsh.
Like many, as good games and bad games, surely.
Well, there is a litany of bad games, and the challenges that this player has in order to give solutions to Everton. If you're going to give away goals the way they did, but the goal from both two goals from throw-ins, the third goal hangs out a leg, got to clear it. Second one not awake and not cleaning out the central. If you're going to go for that, but you've got to clear out the central defence, centre forward. But there's a lot wrong with Everton. There's been a lot wrong for some time. And Sean is a solution of sorts, because ultimately he will be looking at this thinking, is this quite what I signed up for? It was one thing getting into a situation, wanting to get back in the Premier League, sitting in this room a year ago saying there will be another Premier League opportunity for me, and I'm not going to jump down the divisions and diminish my stock by going down to the Championship and maybe never getting back into a Premier League job. He was the difference between them staying up last year and going down. I think they would have gone down if he hadn't have gone in. But I think he's got a very tall order. He will be the difference, I think, between Everton going down this year and staying up. But they are not going to be a mid-table side. They're going to be a side that's going to be looking behind them, unless they make some changes. Calvert-Lewin, I'm very critical of him about things in the past and things that he's got himself involved with.
Yeah, but he can be in this occasion.
Not in this instance, no. He's got his, if you saw the lump on the side of his face, you cannot, even I cannot make trite comments about the reasons why he's gone off injured in this instance. But they're a mile off. They're a mile off Everton. And the very best they're going to do is be able to damage limitating in games until they can get better players in.
In your time as a player, Martin, and managing in England, though, did you not always admire, as I've done in my time down here, this great relationship that the fans have, A, with the club and B, with the players who play for the club? Mm-hmm. In this instance, and Simon mentioned him, so we may as well raise this now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I mean, it was a very visible facial injury, and off he goes again. And yet, he suffered a whole bunch of online abuse, apparently. And Calvert-Lewin's father posted on social media post-match the life of a Premier League footballer's dad. And he goes on to say, to see my son hurt like that brought me to tears again. It always will, no matter what age he is. Now in hospital getting sorted, I hear the names he gets called by his own, inverted commas, fans firsthand. And what will I say? Well, I'll say this. My son lives the dream daily like you wouldn't believe, and that won't change regardless of what some numpty in Stone Island gear shouts. Stay bitter, fellas. Stay bitter. That's what he's saying to the fans who criticise his boy. It's another little setback in a long list of setbacks, but he'll be all right. He always is.
Right. Well, I would tend to agree with that, because obviously as his father he's going to protect his son. But really, I think that Calvert-Lewin is just he's just afflicted with injuries, and some people it happens to players. No matter what you try and do, you just don't seem to be able to shake them off. You know, you either have a hamstring problem that's like De Bruyne, for instance, now is going to be out 4 months because he's come back too early. Sometimes Calvert-Lewin did that in his career.
Reece
Sometimes
James at Chelsea.
Absolutely. Sometimes you sit it out for a couple of weeks longer and you think, I'm okay, and then it happens. And once you start getting a few injuries, it just seems to follow you around. I remember we had a player at Nottingham Forest in my early days. He must have played 300 consecutive games, left back, John Winfield. Then he went to Peterborough, and thankfully Darren wasn't there at the time, and he got injured immediately. So it's something that it happens, and I think that this is what's happening now. Everton should not now be depending just on the one centre forward. We know that Calvert-Lewin probably was going to miss a load of games, so you have to think of other things, and Everton don't seem to be doing that.
I mean, it's pretty bad when it gets to that, and Calvert-Lewin's father's having to come out with that.
Well, I'm not sure that he needs to do that. I mean, ultimately, I understand why he'd want to do it.
It's his son, isn't it?
Well, I understand that, but this is the business of sport, and it goes with the territory.
Oh, but come on, Simon.
It goes with the territory. You're a professional footballer. You get a huge amount of reward, and a bunch of strangers calling you a name, and every now and again, and people getting on your back. Unfortunately, it goes with the territory. And what you do is, if you're his father and you open yourself up to that, you've let them know that they've bothered you. The challenge is with people that are idiots, that are not worth anything. If their opinion is not worth anything, then it's a hard discipline to have. It's a really hard discipline to have. Silence is golden. Silence kills people. It stops them in their tracks, because if you give them no feedback, if he knows the truth, I've questioned it before. I've made observations about him before, and it was, people were cross with me saying, I think there's a preparedness to be more comfortable being injured for this player.
Well, yeah, but the same individuals hear you say things like that. See Calvert-Lewin getting injured on Saturday or yesterday with a facial injury.
Yeah.
And no doubt let rip.
Well, I'm not responsible for their actions. People are responsible for their own actions. But the point is this: is that I have my view on Calvert-Lewin, and I will retain that view. But I certainly don't think that I don't think he's fair game for coming off on Saturday or Sunday. I think he's got a smash in the face. If anyone can see that face, see that the damage that's been done.
Of course.
There's nothing about that player coming off there which is him not being prepared to fight for the cause. But I do think if you put yourself in the way, in the public domain, of certain ways of presenting yourself, people are going to latch upon it.
Well, I will say, if social media had existed in my playing day, my father would have had a field day with it, the number of times he would have had to be coming on to apologise for his son's performances. No question about it. He would have been on. He would have been on every single week.
That's not fair. No, he wouldn't. You could play, Martin. But I mean, are you with Simon? The best thing that Calvert-Lewin's old man should have done is say nothing.
That's probably true, really.
Hard as it is, though.
You've got to stay. That is very, very difficult. It's very difficult for a father, to hear sort of criticism of his son where he feels it's unwarranted, and he's acting in that manner. And it's you after it comes out, you think to yourself, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I am letting people know that it's affecting us. But it is affecting you. This is the whole point. Yeah. It's affecting the player, because the player's taking the criticism. And as I said, I don't want to sit in an ivory tower here and say he shouldn't have done that. As a father, I probably would have done the same thing.
You would have?
I most likely would have done.
Yeah.
I would have, if I thought that the criticism was unfair in that sense. You know.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.